All right, welcome to the Refit podcast. This is the show where we don't talk leadership theory. We talk about real decisions leaders make when the playbook stops working. The pressure's real and there's no perfect answer. Today, I'm joined by Craig Zezima. He's CEO of Resolux America, longtime industry operator, leader who's been on both sides of high growth environments, from operational scale to some hard ethical calls. Craig's story cuts straight to what leadership actually costs when growth accelerates, why trust, standards, and decision-making matter more than ever. Craig, it's great to have you join us today.
Hey, Kyle, I appreciate it. This is exciting. Thank you for the opportunity to join and talk about what I truly love and what the passion is, right? Thank you.
Absolutely. It's going to be a good conversation. And so for folks that are meeting you for the first time, why don't you give us kind of a short version of who you are and what you lead today?
Yeah, so I lead a really diverse organization. I've been in the packaging business, plastic packaging business for probably 35 years plus, all on the commercial side of the business and then obviously the operations as well. So leading and moving into the packaging space for many years. And I run an organization now, Resolux America, which sits here in beautiful Atlanta, Georgia. We've got two huge facilities that run one injection technology platforms and one blow molding platform.
And you've spent, let's call it 30-ish years in this space.
Exactly.
What drew you into leadership in the first place?
That's a fantastic question. I really didn't understand leadership, right? I didn't know anything about it. All I knew is kind of my background, right? I believe like I think you kind of move. I think every leader does the same thing. I didn't start out in my life to say, hey, I want to be a leader, right? I started out as a results focused individual with three things in common, right? I want to create things, I want to contribute things, and I want to connect things. So, you kind of fall into leadership, because of the successes, not you have, but the people around you have. And then, when you understand the ability to create things and bring people into the fray as a contribution aspect of it, and then you connect all the windows, leadership really naturally happens, Kyle, right at the end of the day. So all of a sudden now you get tapped on the shoulder because you've progressed in your career and things, and all of a sudden now people see something in you, and particularly I was blessed to have a business mentor early on in my career. I cherished at the time, and I still am cherished. He's one of my closest not only friends but my business mentor, who's incredibly bright and brilliant. And he saw something in me, and I took a flyer at the end of the day, right? Nervousness and not knowing what it is, and here I sit today, 30-ish years later in management and leadership, and I love it. And I've kind of tried to pass that along as discipleship to others, young adults. I work with college universities and speak at universities on leadership, and it helps me brush up on my skills, and it helps kind of pay it forward.
Yeah. 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 The idea of mentorship, it's interesting. I'm finding that I don't have any good data to back this up, but organizationally, that those types of programs, if they're over formalized, so to speak, I don't know, the level of effectiveness can be 50-50 at best. But that does seem like something that can be a differentiator, is taking a specific interest. And there's a difference between mentorship and coaching, of course. And even in my background from starting out in the Navy, mentorship was a big piece of it. Yeah, I think that's, and you hit on that. And it's interesting that experience that you had at that time is something that's carried you and impacted your life in many, many ways. Probably you didn't even realize it was going to.
Absolutely. No
Yeah.
doubt. I think
Yeah.
I'm sure that you and many of the great leaders that you converse with has been down that path. I think that's kind of the things that links us together, but it's really the characteristics that, you kind of, you're born into, that you carry with you. And again, I don't profess to be the greatest leader of all time. I learn every single day, but again, the points of differentiation, you continue to learn. And I think that those characteristics and those things within carry forever. And I pass it on to my children, and
Yeah.
I'll never get rid of those things that were taught early on in my career.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, I mean, leadership principles, they don't just apply at work, they apply at home.
Oh,
For
absolutely.
absolutely. And you didn't start in business, and I love this. You actually started your career out as a professional baseball player. And so when did you realize that, maybe the baseball career wasn't going to net out the way you had hoped it would be, even though obviously you were very successful at it, and then had some business and leadership in your DNA.
Well, the people that you see on TV are there for a reason.
Yeah.
They're incredibly talented individuals, world-class athletes, and,
Mm,
I was, an individual who enjoyed the process, right? I enjoy the
mhm,
process. I learned quickly as far as the connection standpoint of what that process really is, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the work, right? Because at the end of the day, I felt like, you can, in certain levels in life, and I believe this today in business, and I just had this conversation with my executive leadership team. I think certain levels of life that you want to attain professional success, where you have to make a commitment and a sacrifice, right? You can't have
mhm.
it all. If you want to be normal, that's fine. Normal
Sure.
equals average, right? And so I
Mhm,
learned that principle early on, is because I wasn't the top 3%, right? I had to earn everything I get. I had to work for everything I have. And I love the process. I love the work ethic of it. So I
mhm,
think that really gave me the connection and the characteristic of kind of what that is. So yeah, baseball was a blessing. I love it. I loved it. I love the process. I love the work ethic of it. And it didn't love me, right, at the end of the day, because
yeah,
those individuals you see on TV are there, like I said,
yeah,
for a reason. And I think that the characteristic that was taught was the work piece, was the process
mhm,
piece, right? And getting that, understanding of making sure that we're comfortable being uncomfortable, right?
right,
And, normal's great, but I felt like I wanted more, right? And I love the
mhm,
process. So all of
mhm,
those characteristics for me kind of were learned at the athletic level
mhm.
at a small age, and growing all the way into the professional baseball opportunities that God had afforded me.
Yeah. Well, you were in rare air as it was. I mean, just even getting to that point, and I've often felt that individuals that have excelled in athletics, almost as a rule, and I'm talking high level athletics, right? So collegiate level, and even professional level, minor league. You hit on something around work ethic, and you cannot get there without very intentional, lots of reps, and also the idea of coaching, right?
Yeah.
Getting feedback and
Oh,
being
yeah.
okay in an environment where you're going to get feedback, and not all of it's going to be nicely packaged, probably, right?
Sure.
About performance, and that translates 100% into the business world. And it's the old adage about 10,000 hours. There's actually a little bit of that gets misused. It's not just 10,000 hours of practice to master something. It's actually 10,000 hours of deliberate and intentional practice, which usually goes in concert with coaching, very specific coaching and
Great,
feedback.
great words. Yeah,
Yeah.
that word intentional that you just used
Hmm.
is significant.
Hmm. Yeah. And as you've kind of moved into leadership, and you look back across, your really well placed career, is there a call or a decision that you made where you weren't sure it was going to work out, or there was an issue of risk there that you're like, man, I just don't know that this thing's going to work out?
Yeah, I think the fear factor for sure, right?
Hmm.
Comes into play, because you don't, sometimes you have to make, or not sometimes, I think all the time, and excuse me, in leadership, but you have to make decisions that you feel like, you know what, I'm not sure here. But there was a time in my career where you had to make a decision that went against the grain, right?
Hmm.
But the characteristics and what's in the heart, knowing what's right, one just and fair, you have to make those decisions. And I think from a credibility standpoint, people watch, people see. People want to
Mhm.
see how you make decisions and
Mhm.
what you do, because if you cut a corner,
Yeah.
even if it's the slightest corner, people react in a really negative way that way, and then all of a sudden credibility's lost,
Mhm.
and your character is at stake, right? And so for me, one in particular, kind of situation that I had to deal with is we made a really unethical decision, I think, in an opportunity to do right what's good for the business,
Yeah.
but it really wasn't good for the people and more importantly, the people you serve, on a
Mhm.
customer basis. So yes, you can make that decision and it probably, would be moved or pressed under the rug, but character-wise, why take the
Mhm.
risk, right? And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I looked at it and there was a decision that had to be made, and I was probably only one I was in the minority as far as, "Hey,
Yeah.
this is not the right thing to do."
Mhm.
It's not the right thing to do for the company, not only short term, but also long term.
Mhm.
And it's not the right thing to do from a relationship standpoint where people customer-wise come to you because they feel that you're providing, a great choice. And so,
Yeah.
if we cut this corner and do the wrong thing here for the right reasons on the side of the business,
Mhm.
it doesn't work, right? And so now you put yourself out there and you say, "Hey, this is the wrong thing. We can't go down this direct path in this particular opportunity." And now, uh, you have an ability to potentially be let go, right?
Yeah.
Because of what you feel, how you feel, and the character that you are that is within you. And so now it's gone against the grain, and we've made that decision. And I had to go to the ownership and say, "Hey,
Mhm.
this is wrong. We got to make it right." And
Yeah.
I was definitely in the minority. So yeah, and that was when I talk fear factor, Kyle, I mean,
Yeah.
you probably know much better than I in leadership. You're afraid to make that decision because your career is kind of thinking, boy, you know what? I'm going to make this decision and I'm going to lose
Mhm.
everything here.
Mhm.
And on the contrary, I
Yeah.
didn't lose everything. I can't continue to gain credibility and you know what? At the end of the day, it took a long time, but it was the right decision to move away
Yeah.
from that decision and to
Yeah.
be in the minority. So having the fear, I guess what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
stopping yourself from being successful.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an important point, Craig, and it is actually one of the questions that I use in any executive level interview is, tell me about a time when you had to take great personal risk and make a decision that went counter to maybe what the room was saying or the board was saying. And the reality is that pressure is real.
Yeah.
And you kind of know it at the time, but we've all been there. And now that you've kind of gone through that situation, um and you're sitting in the CEO seat and you've got accountability to the board. They've brought you in with a specific, and we'll talk about it, but you've got a growth mandate, which is fantastic. But there's a lot of pressure that comes with that, and you have to deliver, and you have an entire organization that depends on you. So now, with that perspective, how has that helped from your point of view when you're faced in similar situations that there's a real cost if you say no to that, right? I mean, you could say, look, we're not going to make that compromise, and the compromise may cost us in the short term, realizing some revenue, and it's probably similar to what that situation was like.
Mhm.
And then that's a story that you have to maybe bring back if you miss the quarter goals and things like that. But with that perspective, Craig, what how does that shape maybe your guidance and your decision making from the CEO seat today?
I think, thinking about that, Kyle, it's a fantastic question. I think it really stems from, the belief system, right? And where you sit, ethically and professionally. So, I use this term a lot. Stop stopping yourself because it looks hard.
Mm, I like
And
that.
you were, I'm a faith-filled individual, right? And
Hmm.
so I believe that I was made in the image of God, and which
Hmm.
means there's no obstacle that I could ever face that's greater than than me, right? And so
Mm,
my feeling towards this is that you have to have the ability to master and stack things of success, right? And
Right.
the things that had happened, 30 years ago in my career and now all of a sudden today are totally different. When I look back on,
mhm.
my life career wise, it's totally different than where it is today. So when you stack those successful things and those things that are inside of you that you learn at an early age, it allows you to take things that felt impossible and now make it feel easy.
Mhm.
Right. So I still continue, and I say this to my kids all the time is like, stop stopping yourself from being successful because you think it looks
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
And yes, to answer your question, those hard decisions that impact the bottom line are incredibly hard decisions to make, and a lot of pressure comes with that. But
Sure.
if you think about it like this, I'm called to serve,
Yeah.
I feel. And what I mean by that is I'm called to serve the business, but I'm also called to serve the people within the business. So I have a direct responsibility for 500 people. So the decisions
Right.
I make today, not these glaring, sweeping decisions that make huge impact, that we're making small, tiny decisions that impact the lives of people that are important, not only to me, but important to the business.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, those are real stressful decisions that have to be made, but you don't make them on an island, in my opinion. I
Right.
bring them back and we think about those decisions and how it impacts on a daily basis. And I think once you stack those success steps, then I don't think it gets easier. Again, my opinion only. I don't think it
Yeah.
gets easier making decisions,
Yeah.
but I think the decisions that we make, if we do that and we put those characteristics in front, I
Mhm.
believe that we make the right decisions.
Right. Well, you're in the seat. I often say this, again, the air is a little lighter at this C level and especially the CEO level. And typically the day is not full of people bringing you chocolates and roses all day long, right? You're the chief problem solver, and that's certainly what you're paid to do. I love what you said about the contrast of business and people, and there's an organization that you're responsible to, and there's a brand that goes along with that. But at the end of the day, business is people, and everything that you do and everything that you say is watched very closely by the people around you and the people underneath you, and that's a absolutely critical piece to this. And I was just thinking about this too, Craig. I mean, talking not just about young folks, but I think it's a good retrospective statement. But I got to imagine what got you into the ranks of professional baseball, and then there was a realization that this wasn't going to net out for you. I mean, a lot of times those setbacks can be devastating, and as you kind of draw the arc of your careers are never linear. There's all these kind of waves of ups and downs, and they trend
Yeah.
upwards over time. How did you obviously you had to, but I've seen people get stalled, right, where something doesn't work out the way they hope, and they put everything behind it, like I'm sure you did. Your identity was probably wrapped up around being that professional baseball player. How did that transition happen for you, and then how has that maybe helped you in your career when you've gone through maybe not such great transitions later on in your professional life?
Yeah, that's a really powerful question because I'd be lying to you and your audience to say, hey, that was an easy transition, and I went from
Yeah.
baseball right into real world work, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, it was a difficult situation mentally,
Yeah.
seriously. I think at the end of the day, when I knew that it was over,
Mhm.
um, I wasn't ready for it to be over, right? Because you're
Yeah.
right, you put so much into it, and you work so hard to get to where hey, I've attained this goal. Okay, so now what? It's over. And so the pivot really happened with family. At
Yeah.
the end of that, I was married to my high school sweetheart, my best friend, and
Yeah.
we had a child on the way.
Yeah.
And so the opportunity came because of relationship that I had built. And so all the things that you just mentioned as far as what was learned. So if you take it back from a or the characteristic standpoint and the key components of kind of where I am today,
Mhm.
the the process, the work behind the process, the enjoyment of the work behind the process, the team atmosphere of being, what really looks like success. Because you can be the greatest athlete and the greatest baseball player, but if you don't have the guy next to you feeding you the baseball, you can't turn a double play. And so it's really the team, right? It's not about you. It's always about the team. So those are the characteristics. And then now you're looking at leadership, because you mentioned it earlier about the coaching standpoint. So I've had great mentors and coaches in my life, and I've had brutal mentors and coaches in my life. But here's the crazy part about it. I think I learned more about the worst coaches than I did about the best coaches. And I know that sounds odd. So if you take those characteristics, when you lump them all together, that gave me the ability to kind of pivot into a career that I didn't know was going to become a career. I knew it wasn't going to be baseball anymore. But I also took the learnings that I've taken out of where I was and what really kind of built me out from a character standpoint and brought that into real world, kind of work.
Yeah.
If you would have told me, I don't know, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, that I would be the CEO of a plastic bottle company, I would have said, I would have laughed at you. Right. And so trajectory of kind of where that is, it really started out as, young athletic individual that came from an immigrant family and understood work. There's no substitute for work.
Yeah. 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 It's such an important point. Part of our audience, Craig, is I have the opportunity to interview veterans that have gone through that transition and have gone through some very, very challenging personal transitions into business. And that's a point that I'll just anchor on. Everybody goes through some version of that, and there's a little bit of a reinvention that has to happen. And you certainly had responsibilities that you had to take care of a family and very quickly get on a new path. But that's important. And now in retrospect, as you reflect back on it, you've obviously been able to do that. We don't have the benefit of that foresight at the time, but as you said, you have a strong faith connection. Even from a stoic point, it's the obstacle is the way. That these challenges are there for a reason, and to get through that. So that's an important lesson for anybody in a leadership or going through transition, is to remember that that's part of the journey. It's part of the journey. Okay. Well, look, you've moved into a role now, and as you mentioned, you guys are in an industry that's got a lot going on. You and I had an opportunity to talk a little bit before the podcast about some of the things that are on the horizon, but you stepped in, and there's an aggressive growth expectation. You've got utilization that you're looking at, expansion, potential acquisitions come in, and with all of that, there's a lot of technical aspects to that. But where does leadership capability become a constraint in your experience when you've got all of this coming on, right? The expectation of growth.
Yeah, I think you're right. When I stepped into this role, it's a quasi turnaround situation, meaning that this business, this organization has been in existence since the late 80s. And the brand has been, highly successful and profitable. And just over the last probably call it 3 to 5 years, it's been taking a natural trajectory downward for a number of reasons. I won't go into that, but what I will go into is the pressure of taking a downward spin organization and creating change. Because I don't care who you are, we get, just as human beings, we get comfortable in comfortability, right? At the end of the day, I think that everyone feels like, hey, I don't want to do that because I feel comfortable here, and this is the way I've always done it forever. And me, I think the skill set that I bring is the strategy piece, and I enjoy that. And with strategy comes change. Change just to change is not good, but good change is good change. And so just because of the industry experience that I've had and the growth trajectory in my prior lives, or life, I should say, the individual who has entrusted me with this organization he's a business mentor of mine. He's a guy that understands kind of what drives me. and knows the business that I'm currently in and what it really needs. And so, yeah, the concern, or I'd say not concern, but the risk here is coming
Mhm.
in and taking where we are today and not only trying to get to where we once were, but also well beyond that at another level. And
Sure.
so with that comes the ability to come in and what do we do? Develop relationships, right? It's about the
Mhm.
people, like you just eloquently stated earlier. It's about the people, because at the end of the day, one person's not going to take this boat and turn it and turn it around. It's really more of it's going to take the whole team. And so the
Mhm.
concepts
Mhm.
of being an athlete way back when, and the understanding of how that those decisions are important, based on the team, allows us to, to be very successful in
Yeah.
a commodity business, driven business where how do you differentiate yourself when everyone has
Sure.
the same exact thing, right? So that's part of the change and part of the innovation piece. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of levers being needed to pull. And, I'm just grateful for the opportunity of we've got a tremendous team, with me alongside me. I don't say
Yeah.
behind me or below me because I don't
Mhm.
view them that way. I view
Yeah.
we're equal. Of course, I've got to make the tough decisions at the end of the day, but those
Sure.
guys, those people that are alongside of me, and you trust your people to make the right decisions for the good of the group and the good of the business. So I think that's kind of where we are right now. We're probably beyond the infancy stages, and we're seeing the
Okay.
kind of the fruits of the labor, if you will. But we've
Mhm.
got a long way to go.
Yeah.
And the good news is we're getting there, and we're seeing kind of the light at the end of the tunnel, and so, yeah, it's exciting where we are right now.
Yeah, it really sounds exciting. You were very complimentary of the team that you have the opportunity to work with, Craig. And one of the things that I always kind of harp on in these conversations is you're never going to hire your way out of whatever the situation is, whether it's high growth turnaround. It's the reality is you're going to have to develop and lead through that. You can certainly add some talent and bring people into an organization when you're growing, which introduces its own set of challenges. But you have to develop, and leadership is the leverage point through everything. And as the organization does go through this successful transformation, and you're launching new initiatives, possibly again going through acquisitions, maybe optimizing utilization and facilities. Things are changing, as you said. And so what would your advice be to leaders that are maybe not necessarily that immediate team reporting into you, since you guys spend a lot of time together, but maybe the level below that, or levels below that, as they need to start thinking about, hey, what do we need to do differently to make this work and to achieve this vision?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's, again, my opinion, Kyle, and I'm sure that, there's many opinions, but my opinion, I think it really starts and stems from the message and building that relationship and trust factor, right? And then the strategy, and it becomes now it's the process. Okay, so what's the process? Why? Giving the reason, showing people
Mm.
kind of what the end of the rainbow is great, right? But how are you going to get there? What
Mhm.
is the standard, right? If the standard is set so low, then, again, I'll go back to what I said earlier. Normal's good, but normal is average. And
Yeah.
so we as a business, the message is we don't want to be average.
Mhm.
We want to be well above average, and we want to be
Mhm.
exceptional, right? We want to be world class. Okay, so that's great to say, and that sounds great in a board meeting, but okay, so now where's the meat behind that? So now you have to really delve into the detail and understand the process. Does the process meet the standard in which you're trying to achieve? And so that's the message for my group, and that's the message that they deliver. And trusting in your people to build out the process within each component that drives the impact. There's two things that we must do to be successful. One is the ability to focus on our people and develop our people and trust our people, right?
Mhm.
Two, love our customer. And if you do those two things, I can't honestly say, hey, you're going to be successful, guarantee, but you are on the right path,
Mhm.
because that's what differentiates you or your organization from many, many other people, particularly particularly Kyle in a commodity type business,
Yeah.
right? And so now if you can develop your people and love on your people and trust your people to deliver the message, to build the process, to adhere, measure, measure the process, build on expectations and love the customer, you're more than a quarter of the way there. And
Yeah.
that's what we've done. And I think you're seeing, I said fruits of the labor. I think you're seeing a lot of success built around. So we're close to making significant capital investment to bring on more opportunity, to bring on more people.
Mm-hmm.
And as you do that, now you've got to teach and reteach and refocus on development. So the cycle, it builds, I use this analogy as an athlete, right? You look at the teams that are highly successful, year over year, and the coaches that are highly successful year over year. Well, there's a process there. Those
Yeah.
individuals leave that process and then a new group comes in, but they never miss a beat. How
That's
is
right.
that?
That's right. Yeah.
Right. And so that's the same concept that we feel here. And that's the
Yeah.
kind of the way from a driven standpoint, that's the way I kind of like, look at long-term sustainability and not only growth, but just successful
Yeah.
in everyday life.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And, my take on that is kind of two words that centered one around trust. And, Stephen Covey, trust is a glue of life and moving at the speed of trust. And so as you engender trust, the organization's going to come along with you a lot easier. And that includes when things don't work out necessarily the way you hope they will. And that's always the case, right? Things don't all 100% land the way we hope it does.
Totally.
But if they trust you, right, as a leader, then they know and you understand the vision of we're moving from here to there. So they understand that. And then the second part of that is care. You have to care. And you use the word love. And I love that piece too. As a leader, when you demonstrate that you care, you can also, I'll use the phrase, get away with being human every once in a while, right? Like
Yeah.
it's hey, they'll give you some latitude. Your team will give you latitude if they know that you care. If you've had a bad day and so on and so forth. So just really well said. Bit of a broader question as we look to wrap this up, Craig. Well, what does great leadership look like when nobody's watching?
Yeah. Again, that comes back from, it's really, for me, again, it's the humility factor, right?
Mm.
Because that process that we talk about, and I mention this because I'm not afraid. I'm a incredibly faithful individual that leads by faith and
Mm.
that carries the cross. I'm a believer. I love the Lord. I know that He's blessed me in many many ways. So it's what you just said is the powerful people because powerful statement because I remember what I said earlier. The people watch you, even
Mm-hmm.
though you don't think people are watching you. People are
Mm-hmm.
watching you in some face, some shape or fashion. So it's really truly again the way I kind of live my life. Kyle do I make mistakes? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm humbled by it as well because I don't have all the answers. But if you live by grace, by the biblical perspective, it's kind of like it. It doesn't matter whether you're in a closet or whether you're in your car, whether you're in front of two, three, 400 people.
Yeah.
The standard is the standard, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't. There's no deviation from that. And so, if you're true to yourself, where from a heart standpoint, then there's no wavering, there's no deviation. So people don't see me, but I'm the same Craig Zezima as I sit in front of you today, as I am the same Craig Zezima that I sit in front of the board meetings, and the same Craig Zezima that I sit in front of customers and
Mm-hmm.
one-on-one with our team people and one-on-one with our people in the plant. So for me, it's treating people the same no matter who you are. You could be the president of the company, but you could be the person that works on third shift. And for me, it's walk around and showing people that I'm real,
Yeah.
that my heart is for the greater good, and that
Mm-hmm.
I'm a I'm a humble person, and to me, that's the way I live my life. That's the way I've taught my children. That's the way,
Mm.
we've raised our kids, my wife and I don't deviate from that.
Yeah. Well, it certainly comes across, Craig. And maybe last one here. If you were to go back and have a conversation with that 30-ish years ago version of Craig, um, what would that conversation kind of look like?
The 30-ish Craig certainly is not or excuse me, the 30 years before the 30-ish Craig is
Yeah, give
certainly
or
not.
give or take a few.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But yeah, the conversation I would have, I wish, quite frankly, everybody says it, that I can go back in time and give myself some advice, and the advice would be: is you're only as good as the people that are around you, right?
Mm.
And really, the second piece to that is love unconditionally.
Yeah.
You're gonna get hurt,
Mhm.
but that's okay, because at the end of the day, we're called to serve.
Yeah.
And the successful ones are real,
Yeah.
and don't be something that you think other people want you to be.
Mm.
Be who
Mm.
God has made you to be. Listen, I'm still learning, and I'm still
Yeah.
want to get better, and I'm not there where I think I need to be. That early on, Craig Zezima didn't understand.
Mm.
That early on, Craig Zezima said, "Hey, there's a wall in front of me. I'm going to go through it, and it's going to take me. It's going to be
Mhm.
really hard, and I'm going to be hard on myself." It's not probably the wisest thing to do. There's a way to go around that wall, and there's a way to climb
Mhm.
that wall, and there's a way to put people together to help you get over that wall.
Yeah.
I didn't know that as an early Craig Zezima.
Well, maybe we can say that's some of the wisdom that comes in that 30-ish years of evolution, right? We learn how to go around some of those walls and not use the thick forehead. By the way, guilty as charged. I've done the
Yeah,
same exact thing. So
exactly.
listen, absolutely great conversation, powerful conversation, real leadership, real consequences, real growth. I really appreciate the honesty, willingness to talk about these decisions. A lot of this stuff doesn't show up on the highlight reels, but it's part of the story. And Craig, just appreciate you being here.
Hey, Kyle, I appreciate it. It's been an honor for me to sit in front of somebody that has your experience and your background. Thank you for what you've done for my family and I and this country, and God bless you and your family and all of your listeners and continued success in what you do. Thank you very much for the opportunity to chat with you today.
Thank you, sir. Same to you as well.